Welcome back, Patreon members. Subscribing to the page for this week in conservatism. How you doing, Kaitlin?
Doing pretty good, Jeff. Spent the weekend in New Hampshire.
Beautiful, New Hampshire. It is that time of year where New England really is, there's like 5-6 weeks where it's just the best. It's the best place to be in, definitely the country. You get that cool, crisp fall weather, but it's about to turn. I can feel it. It's going to start. It's going to get real, nippy and wet and shitty. So,
yeah, we have 3 days of rain coming.
You know what I never liked? I never liked the term leaf peeping. Do you call it that, or have you ever heard that?
No.
Oh yeah, the peepers, leaf peepers.
I've never. Yeah, that's weird.
It's a weird way of calling the people that go look at the fall foliage. And did you ever know anybody that called it the foliage?
Yeah. I follow. Who is it? I get is it Foliage Report from?
Is that
the Foliage Report from? Is it Kyle Cotner, the NOAA Weather Ready Nation Ambassador?
Oh, yeah. He does it ironically. Okay.
That's cool. He doesn't do it ironically. He sends out emails with pictures of like the actual like foliage of like people.
Wait. Are you saying it wrong on purpose? Wait, you're messing with me.
Is it how I'm saying it? I'm trying to mimic you.
No, it's foliage. It's fall foliage. Whatever. No, but it's not foliage. This is very important. You're now a New Englander.
Say it.
Now you got me saying it wrong. Foliage.
Foliage.
Yeah, that's right.
How do people in New England say it?
Well, some people say it wrong and go foliage, like aluminum foil.
Oh, it's like those like Cincinnati people who say orange instead of orange.
Or the worst accent is Philly accent. Have you ever heard of Philly accent?
Do one.
Water. Talking about it's not like Canadian. Oh God, it's like out. I'm doing it so bad. But if you're from Philly, you know what I'm talking about. Philly accent's the worst. It's worse than the Boston accent, for real. For real. You gotta listen. Well, watch It's Always Sunny.
And remember, guys, the Boston accent is not racist. Just so we're all clear.
Yeah. Because
but Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
When the guy who plays Dennis Reynolds does a good Philly accent, and it's funny. People make fun of it.
Is that show still on?
Yeah. Well, that's an interest. That is without a question the funniest show.
What season are they?
Like 15. But
okay.
They wanted to end it, and all go on their separate careers and do this, but they realized that it wasn't going so well, so they wanted, which they should go back to it, like Charlie Day and Glenn Howerton. Well, they've all done some stuff, all of them, but none of it's been like killer. None of us kicked it into high gear. Charlie Day's probably the most who's been in some blockbusters, but still, it's like they need to keep the money train coming in. So stick with It's Always Sunny.
Kaitlin Olsen was in Hacks.
What's that?
It's a show on HBO with Jean Smart. When I forgot the younger girl, where Jean Smart is the like the aging comedian out in Vegas, and she hired the writer who is like Gen Z and like one of these like Bernie people, and it's like funny how they like.
It's HBO.
Yeah, it's on HBO. It's really good.
I'll check it out. Hacks.
Yeah.
Hacks. Okay, I'll do it. I like them. I like them all. The whole cast is hilarious. Yeah. No, but I don't even know how we got here. But yeah, Philly accents. Don't say foliage. Say foliage. Foliage. The fall foliage. Yeah, it's changing late here. Not a lot of leaves have fallen. Usually it's.
Well, it's been so warm.
Yeah, it's been
been crazy warm.
I think definitely prevented it. But this week in conservatism, I have noticed something that is really, I think, important for conservatives to hash out. Because what would you say, Kaitlin? Let me ask you a question. What do you think the most important changes that affect your day-to-day life are that the government can influence? What do you think? Like, what, there's
It's always the economy.
the economy, right? It's the economy. That on a day-to-day basis, feeding your family, putting gas in your car, buying a home, working is how your day-to-day struggle. Yeah, foreign policy comes into play. Crime comes into play. There's other issues out there, immigration, things like that. But honestly, that's tied to the economy. But what affects us most that the government has influence upon is the economy. And there's a dangerous new thread in conservatism that and mainly it's populism. It's also some of the integralists who just don't understand economics. Really, and I mean this in the sincere sense. I'm not trying to be, I'm a little bit condescending because this is sort of my wheelhouse. But there's a guy who is in Albania. Probably if he watches this, he's gonna Albert Bakaj. He's a very smart follow on Twitter. I enjoy his tweets. He is getting his PhD in Middle Age, history of the Middle Ages, because I was going to say Middle Age history, which sounds like the history of somebody who's middle aged, but it's not. It's history of Middle Ages. But there's this blend of conservatism over there in Europe that is distinctly different than it is here in America, and we've talked about it last week when we talked about American conservatism is conserving the American founding. Over there, it's totally different. It's like blood and soil, tied with nationalism, but like they don't care about freer market economics. And
they only care about it when it benefits them in the short term, or they're trying to oppose communism, I think.
Yeah, that's about it. Right. That's a good summation. Because I saw Albert tweet something that like, maybe he was quote tweeting somebody about how if you don't want families to receive, I don't know, $300 a month or whatever it is that maybe Biden's doing, it was Marco Rubio. That's who he was quote tweeting, Marco Rubio, because he was against it, and he was saying, oh well, you're not pro family unless you support subsidy payments to every American family. I'm like, oh, and I'm just drawing the line here with these guys. And Adrian Vermeule liked the tweet. Go look it up. And Vermeule's smart enough to know what that means if he's going to endorse it. But this is where they don't understand economics. If the government takes $600 of my money and then decides to give me back $300 of it, that's not a pro-family policy. And It's really important. This is really important because the populists aren't getting this too. J.D. Vance, have you been following his campaign for Senate?
Not really.
Well, he was the author of, if you're out there and you haven't heard him, he was the author of Hillbilly Elegy, talking about, I guess, was it Rust Belt or just the Midwest? And
I have not read it. It's on my list to finally read, but I think that he grew up in like Appalachia, so that would be like very southeastern Ohio, West Virginia.
Yeah.
And I think that he had to live with his grandmother for a long time because his mother couldn't take care of him.
Right.
From what I thought I had read about the book.
I did not read the book, full disclosure, so I'm not going to comment on that, but I am going to comment on some of the things he's been saying as now he's running for Senate, and he's dead wrong, and he wants to literally confiscate the funds of, well, he mentioned in particular, I think the Ford Foundation and other charitable groups, seize their assets and distribute it to the people, which, excuse me, like when do we get into this?
Yes.
Like, and he's saying it from the right, and that's a truly populist message. Now that's socialism. I mean, the government's taking over an entity and just like is it communism?
I think
Huh.
sometimes
What do you think about
when we have leaders that are venture capitalists, even if they come from humble beginnings, they realize over time, and this is not per se what I mean, I per se true, right? Venture capitalists, because they're so wealthy over time, they realize that you need to almost take the wealth in order to redistribute it. It's not going to be going redistributed through charity in the way that
No.
they want to.
No.
And so, not that I disagree with the principle, but I think that a lot of liberal philanthropists and venture capitalists are starting to believe this. They beg for almost higher tax. It's interesting. They beg for almost higher tax rates on these higher brackets, or like seizing the endowments or something like that.
Yeah.
Um, you know, I don't personally agree with that, because that would downwind affect me personally. I think that starts, it's where the line is what I have the issue with. And the line goes farther down than they would like to admit.
I don't trust money in the hands of the government. And this seems to be the default position of way too many of those on I'll use the general term on the right. I don't trust it. It's not so much that I want to keep my money because it's my money. That's a part of it. It's also, though, that I don't trust the government to spend my tax dollars wisely. So when Grover Norquist back in the 80s and 90s, the idea was just starve the beast. Because it's just they're going to come for more. They're not going to spend it wisely and go, oh, like the excuse you hear for public schools, they're just going to want more. So this idea that the government, and I'm assuming that's what J.D. Vance means, the government is going to seize this money from billionaire philanthropists for the greater good, for the common good. It's absurd because one, who defines common good, and yes, I get that the integralists come at it from that point of view, and we got to be a little more aggressive with them because they're on this too. They're about protectionist tariffs, all kinds of larger social welfare programs. They just want to be in charge of them.
I do have to say, Jeff, with some of their argument, I understand. So my biggest concern right now is China and their economic power, along with a lot of their military power. Do have to say one of Trump's better aspects was that he went up against China, and whether or not we agree the trade war was successful or not, it's something that the government can do to kind of go up against China and see like they're going to fight. The issue with that, there is pros and cons, of course, of tariffs or not, but there is the immediate, we're going to go up against you economically, and I don't think Biden can really handle that. And the larger question needs to be asked whether or not we need to decouple from China. I don't think anyone's brave enough to have that conversation yet.
I think we do. China's its own special category in my mind. Because I agree.
I
do
don't,
like
I
what
don't
Trump
think
did. I'm not.
I don't think a free trade blockade is going to work with China. I think that what Obama did with their kind of, was it trade block they were trying to create in the Pacific?
Was it
that was not,
what was it called? TPAC.
It's off the top of my head right now, but
yeah.
their trade blockade of China, I don't think that was going to help either. So these are larger questions where I think the integralist policy is or not integralist policy, but like maybe I don't even know what I would call them. Populists.
I'd call them populists.
Yeah. It's worth a look at, but that doesn't mean that we need to immediately jump on their bandwagon.
Well, China. Two things to that. You're right about China. How do you handle it? I don't know. See, the thing about people when the guys from the Cato Institute and the real libertarians are like free trade, free trade, free trade. I'm like, it's not really free trade with an authoritarian regime that enslaves its people, and then you get a lot of your products. Okay, that's not free trade, all right? And I get that we have to be tough with China for a whole host of reasons, including which the supersonic missile, hypersonic missile, I don't know, that was tested this week, right? So we have to be tough with them. But putting that aside for a second, when we deal with cases with like Mexico or Canadian lumber or Canadian dairy, and we're slapping tariffs here and they slap counter tariffs there, that's about as close to trade with Canada. I think they're our biggest trading partner. Is about as close to free trade as you get, and it has disruptive effects. And if you think
mine their milk, right?
Yeah.
Did you know that? Canada has about a 312% tariff on American milk?
I remember hearing about that when we were going back and forth during the Trump administration. Yeah, but think about that. They're protectionist against us, which, you should want to break down those tariffs. But Canadians are weird because they're all about, making half their broadcasting has to be Canadian owned. So you have all these lame Canadian entertainers who make it big in Canada and are because they're pushed by the federal or the government regulations there. But there's lots of little examples about that across the board that inhibit trade. Trade is good. We even put aside the word free trade, but trade is good.
Trade with friendly partners is good. Yeah. I don't think China is a friendly partner anymore, and it's time to start that conversation.
No, it should be treated as we did the Soviet Union. But the populists and integralists don't get that a large welfare state that they're in charge of doesn't do us any good, nor does throwing up all kinds of blocks to trade that actually encourages better competition. Because if you're trying to protect a certain guild or a certain class of worker because you're afraid of the trade and the economic consequences that result, and that needs to be debated thoroughly, because this is when Republicans take over. This is the mindset we're going to have to fight out when we start to implement policy in the DeSantis administration.
I mostly, so you and I might not be on the same page all the time on conservatism, but I think we're mostly on the same page here. I mean, like, I don't agree with a lot of what the populists say, because I think that they just say something and whatever is popular at the time to upset the elites or whatever, and it's not really good policy.
How do you feel? How do you feel about that in general? I mean, like on Twitter, you and I mean, you tweet way more voluminously than I do, because I've been super busy in the past 6 months or so. But is it owning the libs is fun, right? And the attitude and going after them is a good time.
I mean, the debate is always fun, right? Like, I mean, even if they act stupid, and even if you find one that's meaningful, and the debate is always fun with the libs. It helps either solidify your opinion, or you change your opinion, or you do more research. Like, that's always a good thing, right? So that's the way that I look at it. I also like to have fun on Twitter. It's not like
Twitter's not real life, but what do you want out of your politician though? What do you want your politician to own the libs, or be William F. Buckley and erudite and intellectual and talk about, what do you want? I mean, a blend of both, or what do you?
I do not want William F. Buckley as my politician. I would like him as more of a thought leader. Mm-hmm. But I like Irving Kristol and Russell Kirk a little bit more, because I think that they brought it down to what some goals of American conservative could be, and what kind of defined it in a better way. I think William F. Buckley was more of a debate club master, and he went up against the liberals, and he did what he needed to do, and he really helped bring American conservatism to the forefront in a very combative way, and in a very a big way that like allowed free thought to flow. okay, and a marketplace of ideas to actually happen. Because those two people were able to debate. It's like old Crossfire on CNN. Like, I mean, those ideas were allowed to have a public forum. Nowadays, that's not popular, unless we're watching.
I think it's incredibly popular. It's just not on the
I
mainstream
think
media.
it's popular, right?
Yeah.
I don't. CNN would never recreate Crossfire ever again. And see, Fox News had their own version of it. Who was the old liberal? He passed away recently.
Oh, Hannity and Combs. Alan Combs?
Hannity, yeah, Alan Combs.
Yeah.
And Hannity, and before Hannity,
right.
just
Before
I think old Sean Hannity was okay. Now, not so much.
I gotta fix something.
But do you see what I'm saying? Like, I think that kind of thing was good. The American Populists, I sometimes agree with them, sometimes I don't agree with them. And I think that needs to be okay, because again, we within American conservatism have a coalition. And we need to make sure that that's electorally popular. Right now, Republicans have great issues like working on like school boards and education. That is a great issue, because right now that is something that we need to work on and make better. And have a little bit more power over than just allowing the libs to take control.
Yeah, I will say I'm not too worried that the populist economic policy will take a strong foothold, because it doesn't work. And there's enough.
I don't think that they have the I don't think they have the intellectual power behind it.
No. They when it comes up for debate, even on the right, they lose, right? So it's like, that's the one good thing about, where our media presence is. When the debate is amongst us, people are willing to put down, their marker and say, yeah, this doesn't work. Or, yeah, maybe we'll try that, but sounds like a decent idea, but we've tried that before, something like that. And I think that's what can happen.
We have economic data behind when we don't have tax cuts in place.
Right.
That if we have high tax rates on the highest tax brackets and personal income, the revenue that comes in is just not going to be as much as it has been right now, actually.
Yeah.
So,
I guess, I'm mentioning it because probably, it's not, since we're not in power and there's not much to be done except defeat the left. Defeating the left is...
Well, we're doing a great job of it, right? Procedurally. Yeah. I mean, yeah. I do have to say, so I keep making this point that Chuck Schumer is very much not an equal foe to Mitch McConnell. He's just not an intellectual equal at all. And so Mitch McConnell's just making this dude run, he's just running circles around. Like, it's so incredible that like we have a 50-50 Senate and Mitch McConnell is practically Senate majority leader.
Yeah.
Schumer is just so inept.
It's fabulous. But I got to deal with like Charlie Kirk. Kirk like saying McConnell caved. I'm like, he didn't cave. He delayed it till December. Like this infrastructure bill is not. I'm betting against it. If I'm a betting man, and I am a betting man, I'd put a reasonable amount of money that this infrastructure bill does not get passed at all.
I think there's two options right now. They're definitely not getting $3.5 trillion.
No.
They might not get the infrastructure bill, but they'll get a recon. So I think they're going to have to choose between the two.
How big is the package?
Is the recon?
Yeah.
Right now, I think they're trying to negotiate under $2 trillion.
I don't think it'll happen.
I think we're gonna have to wait and see what House progressives do.
Yeah, which is, I'm hoping they shoot themselves in the foot, which is highly likely.
Yeah,
and
there's
there's a good shot of that, and I think I give McConnell a lot of credit. He has not steered the ship wrong, and if his goal is to squish all of this, drag it out.
He's a master strategist.
Yeah.
You can tell that that's what he does. He might not be popular with the base, but his ability to strategize is something that we should be thankful that we even have in the minority right now. Because right now they're trying to say that we need to bust the filibuster. And that's just not even Schumer knows that he does that and he's pushed to that. Like, he's going to lose majority, and he could lose it for this. Democrats could lose it for a long time.
A
Like,
long time.
you know,
And with the filibuster gone, game over.
I mean,
we're
right. So if they lose it, and then we win back the House and the Senate in 2022, I mean, whoever is majority leader, it could be Kevin McCarthy plus McConnell. They could do whatever they want. And then, but that means that they could do whatever they want and open any type of investigation to make Joe Biden do whatever they want as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Well, I don't want them to do it. It's the wrong thing to do. But like, if they're going to do it, that's why I say when all the progressives are like, time to eliminate the filibuster, and
they don't think the long term.
Yeah, they don't. But I reply, do it. Even the local ones, there's like, it's time to eliminate the filibuster. Like, do it. And suddenly they're like not as gung ho
about it. If you're an adult,
it.
You don't think, like, that's the thing. Like, I think if you're an adult and you're saying destroy the filibuster, you know, the thing that Democrats protected for years under Trump.
Yeah.
If you're an adult and you're saying that, then you have it. I immediately think that you're kind of infantile.
There's a childlike quality of the progressive mind. It really is. It's very emotional. It's not very logical. They just repeat things back, and I'm starting to see that a lot of the Ivy League betters, the well-schooled, well-heeled people, the educated elite, aren't necessarily good at thinking. They're good at repeating back what they've been told, and I think you can make it. Like, if you look at Pete Buttigieg and Jen Psaki, which we'll maybe get into on the regular episode, like these people that go to very nice schools and are, well-bred, I don't know, whatever the phrasing is, they have gotten to a point in life where haven't had to perform well, but at the same time have a title. They don't have to produce results.
I call it failing upwards.
Right.
I mean, Joe Biden didn't go to a nice school. He's not Ivy League educated.
They haven't accomplished anything.
No, but like, they fail upwards. Like, I think Mayor Pete is one of those people that's a golden boy of the Democratic Party. And for all their talk about privilege, they allow him to be mediocre.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And make excuses for him to be mediocre. And on the back end, you all can't be happy about that. Like,
the way they come up, they're not taught how to do things and operate things and think. They're taught to learn what other people are telling them. And this is important, because the people who are successful and innovative and free thinkers have to overcome challenges. And a lot of these folks, that's why they constantly talk about their upbringing and how hard it was because of their circumstances and their category that they fit into, because it wasn't.
Yeah, there's a concept of perseverance that that those people have, that within, I guess, the Democratic Party and all of the people who go to Ivy League schools, like, getting into those schools is the hardest part, right?
Right. But once you're there, it's just repeat back what you're told. Just be good at repeating back what you're told, and you can graduate with your degree. You don't have to think. You just have to repeat back.
I mean, the social network, the networking that you get from those schools in general is what you want. Yeah. So that's what they do over there.
Well, anyway, populism and the integralists, bad on economic policy. That was the point of this episode. But I like this. I like it, kind of like how the conversation just happens organically. All right. Thank you, patrons. We're going to switch on over to the regular episode. Tell your friends about us. Tell them to subscribe. It's only $1 a month. As the fight continues, we're really going to be the only ones who cover it. You're not going to hear this on Ruthless or any of the big players, the NROs and the dispatches. They're not going to cover their inter something fighting.
Well, I mean,
highbrow quality podcasting here. Inter something
over at the Dispatch, but I think that these are good conversations to have. They're not they're not ivory tower discussions. Yeah. We're having real hash outs and discussions of conservatism and all over, each faction within conservatism. And it's important to discuss these differences and where we can agree and move forward.
Yeah. I think we should get into China and on a future episode for sure. All right. Thank you, everybody. We will catch you next time.